So spirit guides. So spirit guides are the guidance that hangs around us. A lot of times, like growing up, some of us might have felt them. They might have been our imaginary friends. But they're also kind of what we would consider a bit of like a guardian angel sometimes if we don't really know what it is. They are highly evolved beings. So the concept is that they are not necessarily coming back to earth and to live another lifetime. They're like pretty much done, and they're kind of raising up in their they're trying to get to mastery, basically, to like kind of an ascended master position. So it almost seems like they're kind of like spiritually coaching us from there. So a lot of us have guides that have come from past lifetimes of ours. That's why we'll see some people that have spirit guides that are actually like star seeds. So like some people will have like Pleiadians or different star guides because they've had lifetimes on other places. For instance, for me, one of my main guide, actually the first guide I ever met, is Native American. It's because I had a Native American lifetime. So like some of them are past, like are with us from a past life, and some of them are not. But they're not necessarily a like a past loved one that we do know. So sometimes, we have this knowing in the sense that like maybe like my grandmother who passed away or my mother who passed away is like watching over me. And that is definitely correct, as our past loved ones will hang out with us, but they're not necessarily like the spirit guide, because your mother who passed away or your grandmother who passed away could know you very well from this lifetime, but we aren't necessarily sure if they are, a super advanced soul. You might be more advanced than them, and also so they might not have as much information as like you need from a spirit guide. And also, we don't know like what their purposes or what they're up to and things like that. So they're not going to necessarily be your, well, I've never seen it. They're not going to be like your spirit guide, but they can still be with you and offer guidance as a loved one. But for your actual soul, your spiritual, path of many lifetimes, you're going to have like a higher being, which is a spirit guide. We have more than one. And the ones that start to show up are just the ones that are ready for us, that we're ready to see them. So you're definitely going to have more than one. I hung out with one spirit guide for a very long time and didn't meet any other spirit guides for a long time. And then after the second one came, like several came back to back, and I was like open to seeing a lot more um like quicker. But I stayed with like my one spirit guide for like over probably 2 or 3 years, just me and him for a long time. So they're actually different sizes. So who was it that I was reading yesterday or 2 days ago? But they had these Pleiadian guides, and they were very big. But then let's say you might have like a spirit guide that is like a fairy type guide, and those are usually from the underworld, and they look very small. There's even like animal spirit guides that just like kind of look like animals, or some that look very large, some that look like regular size. And what's funny about spirit guides is that they like they'll show up in like kind of whatever form you are comfortable with. So like if they're like too big or something, and like you can't figure it out, like you can always ask them to change form. And just because Hailem, who's like my main guide, shows up as Native American, like it's just something that like I was able to grasp onto, because I had seen a past life before as a Native American, and then I saw him as a Native American, and it kind of just made sense for me. But like by the time I got to like my third guide, they were all like white, and I was like, listen, I need some like diversity in my spirit guide. So my third guide started changing form for me. So like they'll change form for you if you don't like see them well, or you're kind of like me, that you would like a little bit more drama and like something else going on. So they will change form, but they usually just show up in something that you're pretty comfortable in, and that maybe something you might remember them from a past life too. So but that's what they will change. And sometimes that's why some people at first kind of think their guide is like masculine, but then it starts to turn female, because sometimes some of us are actually more comfortable with like a female guide than like a masculine guide, and that's why that starts to change a little bit. So the first few interactions, sometimes like your antenna is like a little like you can't see it super clear, but with time it'll get a very clear vision and you don't have to doubt like the way you see them. But I definitely, because I read so many people, I've definitely seen like themes when it comes to guides. Like we typically see like starseed guides who are a little bit bigger. We see like fairy guides that come from from down in the underworld. We see like a lot of Native Americans, a lot of Egyptian, a lot of like mystic kind of wizard type guides that almost like hold like a staff. And typically, like where these guides sometimes, if your guide is from like one of those orders, is what I call it, there's they kind of all have a similar mission. So that's pretty interesting to see. What else do we have? We have like priestess type guides, like almost like goddess looking guides. Um, lots of different versions, and they come for specific reasons. So as a spirit guide starts to show up for you, they tend to have specialties. So, and let's say you specifically are looking for a guide in a specific area. Maybe you're looking for like a guide when it comes to love or to business. You can request that also. Like you can set that intention. For instance, I have like a collective that helps with business, and I wasn't like super aware of them. I had to like request them, and once I started to request them, I could see them much more often. But in the beginning, I was just letting guides come through that wanted to come through. I wasn't really like asking for a specific guide. But then after I learned a little bit more, I was like, oh, like maybe I can ask for this, and maybe I can ask for this. So it's, like you also have that say if that's something you guys are interested in. So um, that's what a spirit guide is and what they're not. They are like, they love you guys. They're never gonna be hard on you. You don't, at this stage of the game, like you don't need to be afraid of like connecting to something that is bad. We're gonna do protection before we get started. But I know like sometimes there's concerns that like, what if I'm connecting to something, like what if I'm connecting to a ghost or something that's like bad for me, or something like that. And that it only becomes a concern once you get like much deeper into the work. Like that's a concern for me for like my soul teachers. But in the beginning, you're so protected that like don't be afraid of that. Some of us feel scared because we have like religious programming, and at least for me, I was raised Catholic, and I was super scared to do this work. I actually started off connecting with angels because that felt very safe to me, and I thought like, well, they're in the Bible, so like it'll be okay. um so like like a lot of the fear is just kind of the fear of doing this work, also the fear of having a past life where you were probably murdered for being a witch, like those fears start to come up. But this is like very safe, and I'm going to show you how to do it safe. So